and welcome to All People's Church Unitarian Universalist. My name is Lori McKitka, and I am your co-celebrant this morning. Our Sunday service is a shared time of worship for all present as we gather for music, spoken words, a time of reflection, and inspiration as a religious community. Let us come together in a spirit of compassion and respect for ourselves and others attending this service. We especially welcome those who are visiting today. If you haven't yet done so, please sign in at the visitors table by the front door, where you can be placed on our mailing list to receive weekly emails and the monthly newsletter. Before we continue on to worship, there are some announcements. We will be remembering our longtime member, Marianne Herman, with a memorial service next Saturday, October 7th at 5 p.m. And we are asking that members of this church bring snacks, just little finger foods, to have after the service. The Texas Coalition Against the Death Penalty will observe World Day Against the Death Penalty and hold a vigil for Jedediah Murphy in the event his scheduled execution that day moves forward on Tuesday, October 10th, here at All Peoples from 6 to 7. This interfaith observance will advocate in solidarity for the abolition of the death penalty, raise awareness of the conditions and circumstances that affect prisoners with death sentences, and hold space to gather in lamentation, meditation, and prayer for all those impacted by violence in our culture. Please register using the form in the foyer or the QR code on the form. Please note that the water is off in the library and in the two front restrooms, but I don't think that's true now. I think the front restrooms are okay. In the pulpit this morning is Joel Bailey. Joel was born here in Fort Worth, but when he was young, his parents moved to Washington, D.C., near Bethesda. When he was 26, he and his mom moved back to Fort Worth to care for her parents. Joel first started coming to First Jefferson in 1993 and became a member later that same year and has been here ever since. Joel and a few others started CUPS, which is the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans, in 1994. He and Charlotte were married in the church in 1999, and their son Glenn was born the following year. Joel has served the church in many ways. I see him here all the time, and for many years, including working on the grounds with Nick Kirko, Judy Butler, and Richard Marshall. He also helps people with transportation as a member of the Caring and Sharing Committee. Please relax now and enjoy some beautiful music from our pianist, Misha.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Our opening words come from Margaret Keep. As surely as we belong to the universe, we belong together. We join here to transcend the isolated self, to reconnect and to know ourselves, to be at home here on earth, under the stars, and linked with one another.
We now invite you to rise in body or spirit for the chalice lighting, opening hymn, and spoken affirmation. Our chalice lighting words come from Pat Uriblichti. We light our chalice this morning knowing that our hope and our passion are needed to change the world. We bring different gifts to the work, but we come together in one faith. That what we do makes a difference, both to our world and in ourselves. Please now join in singing our opening hymn, which is number 8, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit. Love is the doctrine of this church. Quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Please be seated. Yeah, I guess I forgot to announce Sarah will be doing the story for all ages. I just assumed she'd magically appear.
All right, so I'll invite the young and the young at heart to come to the cushions. I'm hoping that the tech deck has the slideshow. Yes, okay. So I'll tell you when to start it, because there's a little couple paragraphs first. All right, so today we're going to talk about a thin place in Scotland. Have y'all ever heard of a thin place? Do you know what that is? So this is an actual place, but understanding about it comes from ancient Celtic wisdom. So Celtic wisdom is from the British Islands, actually. And it means a place where the veil between this world and another world is very, very thin. So it's like kind of translucent. And so whatever that difference is, it could be what's sacred and your everyday world. It could be, for some people, a concept like God is meaningful. So the veil between the normal world and the sacred world. But the point is that it's almost transparent. You could almost have your foot in both places at once. And this wisdom is in both mystic strains of Christianity, but its roots came from ancient earth-based practices, or what we would call paganism now. And the modern people who continue to maintain this ancient earth wisdom are also very sensitive to thin places. And so they're really important. They're really, really important because people can experience the ultimate or the divine when they go into a thin place. And so I want to tell you about a gentleman. His name was George MacLeod. And he was a minister in a very, very industrial city, a big shipbuilding city in Scotland, in the town called Glasgow. And so we can go ahead and show the first slide now. And I got a picture of the slideshow for you, so you don't have to look. So here's the slideshow itself. And so we're showing a picture of what it looked like where he lived. And I got a couple of extra pictures from, and I can't show it to y'all because I don't have permission, but you can see from above what the city looked like. And so you can see, like, there's not a lot of trees, right? No, and it's like all, what does it look like to you, the view from above? Right, so it's a total city, just tall buildings, no greenery. And Naomi was saying that maybe there was even gas in the air. And so this was where Reverend MacLeod was serving. And by the way, I'm going to use the word kirk. The kirk is the Church of Scotland. And so he was in Govan, and so that's the picture that we see. And his parishioners had a lot of poverty because it was 1938. So what was happening in 1938? Anybody remember? It was like a worldwide depression was going on. And so it was a big shipbuilding city, but a lot of people were unemployed. And so we've shown the area in 1904. We see how urban that is. And Reverend MacLeod, when he was there, he was like, you know, my studies didn't prepare me for this. I didn't know about extreme poverty. The kirk is not speaking to them. It's not doing anything for them. And he saw that they were really struggling. And so he quit. And he decided that he was going to go to a place that was a very thin place that he knew of, and start up a community that had the people who lived in Govan, in Glasgow, and student ministers. And this place was called Iona. And Iona is a tiny island. It's 1 mile wide and 3.5 miles long. And so that island is probably smaller than the distance from this building to most of y'all's houses. And so we'll go ahead and show the next slide. And what you'll see, and so what you're going to want to do is come, and I'm sorry that it's upside down, is right here. So we have kind of a map of the United Kingdom, and it shows where Iona is, and it's how far it is from Glasgow. And even now it takes 6.5 hours to go to Iona from Glasgow. It involves a train and a bus and 2 ferries. Do you know what a ferry is? A ferry is a boat. Because if you're on an island, you need to use a boat to get to an island. And so it was a very significant distance, but you had a lot of these people, these unemployed laborers and the students, and they were very attracted to Iona. And so they made the trip. And then on the left, where you see the kind of keyhole, that you can barely see tiny Iona through a cave. That it's really hard to see, but it's in there. So we'll go on to the next slide and think about what it might have been like from that industrial place. And this slide, so it's this one, this is what they saw, except without the houses, because Iona was abandoned at that time. And so they were able to see this beautiful island, which was so different than what they were used to from their home. And this island in ancient times was a gathering place for Druids, which is, again, that earth-centered wisdom. And it's also the place where Celtic Christianity got its start. And what they all gathered around was this old abandoned abbey. And so let's go on to the next slide. And you can see a picture of the abbey as it is now. And it was like completely abandoned and all falling apart. And this group of people rebuilt it together over a series of years. And so these student ministers and these unemployed artisans, they all built the abbey, but then they also studied and had some direct experience of the sacred as they were together in their religious community and they explored this ancient island. And so we've seen the picture of the abbey, and I'll show you the next slide is just a picture from 1962 from the inside of the abbey. And you have the minister, Reverend McLeod, and ministers of that Iona community. And people continue to go from Glasgow to Iona because of the lure of this place. And this Iona community still exists. It fuses mystical and experiential worship with social action. And so they get involved with climate justice, immigration, LGBTQ issues, and poverty and peace. And so I thought I'd take everybody to Iona through pictures. We can see a few slides to see what it would be like to explore the island. And so the next slide, you can see what the beach is like. Yeah, so Naomi's going, whoa. Can you imagine like hearing the wind and seeing the wind? Yeah, sort of. Yeah, and it's a beautiful white beach and you're like at the end of the world. There's no pollution, correct. So even you're in a thin place, but you're also in a place that's not polluted. Yeah. All right, so let's go to the next slide. And this is as if you're wandering the island. These are rocks. They have a lot of really unusual rocks on this island. Yeah, can you... The what? It looks like a salamander, yeah. And then you could like touch the rocks and it has all this texture. And so you have time and the wind and the water made these rock formations. And so on the next slide, we have another rock formation. Right. And then the next slide, so Naomi went on to the next slide, there's a moss on the rock because the rocks are where the water meets the sand. And then on the left side, I just wanted to show you, there's one gravestone. So this is where we are. There's 60 kings that are buried in Iona. Even if they died somewhere else, they requested that they would go back to Iona. And so not only is it a place where you can just experience the thin place of nature, you can also kind of get connected to your ancestors there. And so I have one more slide. And the final slide is from Iona. You can see Mull, which is the last island before you get to Iona. And so what I wanted to say about it is that from the thin place of Iona, even Mull, wherever you came from, looks a little bit magical. And I think that might be part of why people go to Iona, because they go from wherever they are and they can do what? You want to go to Iona? Yeah, me too. I've lived in Glasgow, so where all the city is, but not in I've never been to Iona, so I really want to go myself and experience it myself. Well, all right, thank you for listening. I really appreciate your engagement, and you get to keep that. You can keep that if you want. So, all right, yeah, you can keep both of them. All right, thank you. Yeah, if you can help with the pillows, that would be great. Okay, thank you, Joel.
We say goodbye to our children and the youth with the children's recessional hymn as we leave this friendly place. The purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather here to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring the human being closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take an offering that allows all us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support this self-supporting church and its many ministries. It is our custom to share the undesignated cash offerings that are collected each week with a nonprofit or charitable organization. We do this on a quarterly basis, and our Share the Plate recipient for this quarter is Jane's Due Process, an advocacy group for reproductive justice. The gifts of the congregation will be most gratefully received. Will the usher and the choir please come forward? bless you. At this time in our service, we pause to honor and to give time and attention to those things most important to us. We gather here for healing and for peace in our hearts and to honor our time together with the shared stories and news from the congregation. Each week, there is a journal outside the entrance to the sanctuary where you can write a message of memory or hope before the service. We honor these messages by lighting 3 candles next to our chalice. Can you light them? Also, at any time during our service, you are welcome to come forward and light a candle in our meditation center here at the side of the chancel. Today, from our book of memory and hope, we include no news is good news. That is, if you are a glass half full type of person. And I also got one from David Bindi, who said the flowers in the front of the chalice are in memory of Christina Shatman. And also, somehow I missed a couple of announcements, so I'm going to do them now. Our service auction is Saturday, November 11th. There are donation forms in the foyer. Think about what you can donate. And we will be talking about the service auction probably every week for a couple of months now. And also, another announcement, please join the visioning committee today after potluck in Jagger's Parlor to see our work so far. We're hoping to gather additional insights. Oh, and from I missed this one, from Timmy Crawford, last Thursday afternoon, I lost all feeling on my left side from the waist up. And if you don't know who Timmy Crawford is, he was here, I believe, last week doing he was the choir director last week. Has a gorgeous voice. I went to the emergency room at Baylor, Scott and White, and when he got there, he had suffered a TAI, also known as a mini stroke. There was no brain damage, but his speech was slurred. He was released Saturday, but he is still feeling weak on his left side, though he is slowly gaining his strength back. Please hold him in your thoughts and prayers for complete healing, Let us open our minds and hearts to the place of quiet, to the silent prayer for the healing of pain, and to the soft, gentle coming of love. Please now settle comfortably and pause for a few moments of quiet meditation to hold and uplift the sorrows and celebrations, both spoken and unspoken among us. And then Misha will lift our hearts with music.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Today is part of a long-standing tradition in our Unitarian Universalist Church of the Cups group, Sacred Hearth Cups, taking on the performance of a Sunday service at least once a year, sometimes twice, as a way to contribute to the life and the vitality of All People's Church, UU. Also, this is to help fill in a wide-open Sunday calendar of the year, whereby we're always trying to find people to come in. We are a lay-led congregation now, after all. And this is a way to help out the church and, offer some variety in the offerings of the Sunday sermons. Now, I have spoken here before on my religious beliefs, notably on October 31st of 2021, which was a Halloween Sunday. The Cups group did a special on Halloween and UU spiritual traditions. And then 1 year ago, on the third Sunday of August of 2022, Cups did lead a Sunday ritual rain ceremony, which I think was a great success because it did rain the next day. We weren't going to try that this year because this drought was a killer, and I don't think it would have worked. So I want to consider how Cups is doing and how the church is doing in this challenging year of 2023, and what is the relationship between these two entities at this late date in the mid-2020s of the 21st century. Now, as I've mentioned before, I was raised with kind of a humanist, atheist household. My dad was an economics professor, and he was pretty much an atheist. My mom was agnostic. And so I was raised in the 60s in a very liberal household with no religious dogma and indoctrination. So I was very interested in Greek and Norse mythology in my youth, and I studied it intensely. So it's maybe not surprising that in 1967 I decided that I was a pagan. And sometimes I go to some get-togethers and I usually find out that I've been pagan longer than anybody else in the whole room. And so Cups has become a registered, actually I was going to say that as a pagan, I never did believe in the Trinity, or nor did I ever believe that God was a dungeon master or that there was such a thing as a hell. So that kind of fit me in, even though I was a pagan and I didn't become Unitarian Universalist for a long time. I did not hold to this Trinity concept, nor did I believe in damnation of souls. So as a pagan, I had a kind of automatic hand-in-glove fit right there. So Cups became a registered affiliate spiritual organization of the Unitarian Universal Association in 1987. And that's when Cups itself nationwide got started. And this is thanks to the efforts of Margot Adler, Linda Pinty, and others. And then, as I mentioned in my sketch earlier, then David Pollard and I received permission, along with Leilani Lewis, from the church board to start a Cups group here in May of 1994. Also, earth-centered spiritual traditions and pagan religions became one of our official sources of spirituality, our sixth source of spirituality, in 1997. It was adopted in 96 and became official in 1997. Except for the period of March 2020 to Halloween 2021, Cups has been in continuous operation at this church ever since. In Halloween, we had our first service after the shutdown of the coronavirus epidemic of 2020. On one summer solstice in 2022, we did close down our group, and instead, most of us traveled over to Denton UU Cups to join in their summer solstice ritual. So we do have a shared relationship with Cups groups outside of our church, in another instance of another Cups group at a UU church. So I was a pagan for 23 years before becoming a Unitarian Universalist. I wanted to see how that could fit in with my belief in gods and goddesses and be co-activating with a liberal free thought denomination, even though it was descended from a monotheistic tradition with a unitary conception of reality, and that is clear in our name. So I think, seeing as how it has fit in very well in these decades since. I mean, I am still here after 40 and a half. Now, I know that paganism, heathenism, witchcraft, and such are very controversial topics. They're apt to bring conflict and condemnation from skeptics and Orthodox institutions alike. But we have weathered it and succeeded in bringing a new spiritual life and experience here that might not have or would not have happened otherwise without Sacred Hearth cups. Now, in our practices in all these decades, having rituals on Saturday nights, 8 times a year, attending other church events as supporters, we have abided by the rules and have been good stewards of our building privileges. And we have also aided in the financial support of this beloved place of ours, All People's Church. Oh, there was one time early on, maybe like 1998, when we burned some sage in the hallway, and some folks the next morning thought we must have been smoking marijuana that night before. Well, we weren't really, but we never did burn anything in the church again after that. Sometimes some people want to burn, incense for rituals, and some people have a problem with secondhand smoke, so we do burn incense. We'll do it outside. But we pagans have been an important and influential part in bringing a new participation of world religions into our UU faith, greater than pre-1980. The pagan elemental traditions have been an avenue for new and greater appreciation and celebration of women's tradition and feminist spirituality, and getting beyond the domination of male patriarchal conceptions of divinity that long dominated many world religions and actually dominated the Unitarian and the Universalist Church for their first couple of centuries, since they mostly had male conceptions of monotheistic deity. The idea of conceiving the holy as a female with a woman's face is fair, in my view, affirming over half of us. We pagans have brought in a renewed focus on the divinity of nature, green religion, and the holy in the ecology, and working for and demanding a survivable environment for our children's sake with the help of our nature deities. Pagans have been demonized for centuries by some dogmatic religionists of multiple faiths. I'm not picking on anyone, but there's been a number of faiths. Of course, we are their boogeyman. And one of the things we've often been criticized for, pagans have been overly tolerant or affirming to homosexuals, lesbians, gays, transgender people. Pagan traditions have even had transgender gods. And we pagans have taken a lot of heat over the centuries, going back to the days of the Roman Empire, for standing up for the rights of homosexuals and lesbians and transgender folks. Neo-pagans such as myself have also stood for freedom to use natural substances such as mushrooms and marijuana as religious sacraments. Now, 40, 50 years ago, that would have been, oh my God. But look at what is happening in the United States today with pot legalization in some 16 states and more on the way. And they have cleared recreational marijuana use, so it's not as controversial as it was back in the 60s when I was a young pagan. And also with the psychedelic use of certain types of mushrooms for treating, low-dose clinical mushroom therapy for post-traumatic stress disorder and depressions and such. So I feel I was really ahead of my time back in 1969 when I stood for this. Now let's take a closer look and see that many of these dead pagan religions with polytheism were not quite so dead as many thought. Or they never died, like Hinduism. Or they were brought back to life by new adherents to paganism since the cultural revolutions of the 60s and 70s. You see, the covenant of Unitarian Universalist pagans is a world tradition of paganism. I mean, some pagan groups are Celtic or Sumerian or Native American, and that's all they do. I mean, that's their thing, and like some denominations of Christianity, that's all they do. But Unitarian Universalist pagan covenant tradition has purposely, since its founding in 1987, been dedicated to all the traditions of the world pagan wisdom religion. We honor all the traditions by, kind of doing it a round robin. We'll do Celtic one spring, and then we'll do Norse that fall, and we'll do Greco-Roman, and then we'll do Egyptian. And we are very respectful and aware of not doing any cultural appropriation. And we practice and honor the gods and goddesses of the different traditions of the world and venerate and worship with them. Of course, the most renowned of these pagan traditions are the Greco-Roman. It comes the first to mind with the Greek mythology that I mentioned. The Norse tradition, the Celtic, the African Yoruban tradition of West Africa that had so much influence in the New World, the Egyptian, the Phoenician, the Shinto of Japan, and the Taoism of ancient China. These are wonderful world traditions that we can access and appreciate, and one can align with or believe in one or many of them. And one can honor or befriend one or more or many or few of the deities of all these traditions, and you can have a spiritual relationship that I find it can be made very rewarding and very helpful for your survival in today's challenging environment. So, I am a believer in both the Greek mythology and the Egyptian pantheon, as an example. We also affirm the surviving religions that the Orthodox Church calls, Orthodox churches, I don't want to pick on just the Orthodox, but the Orthodox churches call pagan and heathen of the indigenous peoples of today, like the Native Americans, Pacific Islanders, and the Inuit peoples of northern Canada. So I also use the term in describing myself as a heathen. Sometimes it sounds like an insult. I don't consider it such. Heathenism kind of describes the country paganism that I aspire to. But although witchcraft and Wicca are also part of the neo-pagan revival, I personally do not call myself a witch. That is a little bit too controversial for me, and I think I kind of keep my head low on that one. Although I stand for anybody else who wants to do so and claims to be a witch and works at it, I respect them. Keep in mind that the witchcraft tradition includes the wise woman heritage going back to the Neolithic age of herbal healing, midwifery, and women helping women with magical wisdom traditions. That is also why we, or 99% of us pagans, are staunch upholders of the women's right to reproductive rights, to freedom to manage their own fertility and manage their own life choices and life course. And so, therefore, we at pagans at APC Cups are strongly in support and strongly oppose the Supreme Court's decision in the Dobbs case to take away women's rights and to deny them essential medical care, which is causing all sorts of horrible complications and bad outcomes for women just because of this ignorant prejudice. We heathens know that abortion care is an essential part of medical treatment. And women who are beleaguered by backwards and ignorant abortion ban laws are finding that out today, right now, as we are sitting here. We pagans often get criticized for that also, as that, in tradition, pagans get lumped in with a lot of the ancient evil practices that we've seen. I mean, history is full of of evils and, nefarious activities. These activities include like human sacrifice, or ritual wars, ritual aggressions against neighboring tribes or neighboring peoples. Pagans have often been called Moloch worshippers, which was a Canaanite religion that did infant immolations. And so they equate, being for abortion rights as somehow like us pagans are putting infants into the fire of a statue of Moloch. So this harkens back to the controversial aspect I mentioned about having a pagan group here at our church. Some of these critics who are very fundamentalist, orthodox, or fundamentalist religious outlook of not just Christianity, but several religions, they claim we are of the devil and a part of Satan's plot to take over the world. It's true. I just read a book the other day, and I put it in the library about the return of paganism and how I decided to read it because it was a direct attack on my own neo-pagan beliefs. And so they claim that we are part of Satan's plot to take over the world. and to destroy all that is holy and good and of value in society. And so we are definitely on the list of controversial conflicts that are coming to us in the mid-2020s now. Pagans also come in all colors, and so do goddesses and gods. So we stand for one anti-racist universal standard of social ethics. So us pagans are kind of like been running blockers for our churches, our UU Church's conscientious positions and debates in this ideological fray of the coming presidential election year. And us modern pagans of 2023, I go back to the 60s and the 70s, but I think here it is 50 some years later. And we are now postmodern pagans in that we use cyber technology. We rely on science and respect science. We are, as far as postmodern paganism, we are for an anti-imperial historical narratives, as opposed to the imperial historical narratives that shaped our society all through the 19th century and the 20th century. And we are also opposed not only to anti-imperial anti-imperial narratives, but patriarchal world frames, which value men over women and maintain a masculine opinion and view of the holy, and that God is only the Father. Pagans have always opposed that and maintained kind of a fair outlook that the holy can be female, and I think that really helps me. Also, part of the postmodern paganism is the use of deconstruction, which is a 21st century philosophical term, meaning that we look at the assumptions that govern society and we try to take them apart and try to understand where they came from, what their effect is, and what their future prospects are. So pagan reform or postmodern paganisms are for deconstruction of all the negative ideologies. And this deconstructionism, or this postmodern paganism, also means that we are reform pagans. Now, you might have heard of Reform Christianity and the Reformation. Well, who's to say that a person who believes ancient wisdom religion cannot also reform his religion? I don't believe in certain things that a lot of tribesmen believed 2,000 years ago or 500 years ago. Reform pagans operate from an ethical standpoint and an ethical basis, in that we disavow ancient evil practices that historical paganisms might have been involved in, such as slavery, animal extinctions, for example, and as I mentioned before, imperial wars and conquests, which are so prevalent in our readings of ancient history. So it was like David Pollard and I told the Nervous Board back in 1994 that First Jefferson Cuffs would not allow, and these are all the things that pagans, you'll be hearing all those pagans, no ritual sex magic, no casting of curses or hexes, no ritual drug use, no invoking or raising of demonic powers. We do not do blood magic, and we do not do animal sacrifices. So I think we covered a lot of the potential things that, might bring the law down on us or bring the cultural warriors of the right, out here picketing our church for some reason. So, and I can guarantee the honesty that we have never indulged in any of the kind of things that, wicked pagans had gotten a lot of bad historical press from. So it was back in May of 1994 when David Pollard and Leilani Lewis and I went to the board, and we got the okay from Jim Hazelwood, who was president of the church at that time, and the rest of the board on a trust basis. And Jim was a strong humanist also. Keep that in mind. And so was a good number of the people on the board. And we were able to convince them to trust us and give us a try. So here it is, almost 30 years later. I can testify that we have been a positive influence, and we've been an offering of an alternative for UU Church spirituality, and a way to explore religious concepts and spiritual doctrines. So All People's Church is a wonderful place that is guided by reason, and we don't have to worry about some kind of critics on the fundamentalist right attacking us for believing controversial things that might have hellish origin or something. So how about polytheism? Now that's another one. We're a Unitarian church, and Unitarian has usually been interpreted to mean one God or some kind of unitary aspect of the universe, like maybe pantheism or one spirit. But I say there are lots of ways to interpret Unitarianism, and I kind of look at it, the gods and goddesses, as a family of gods, and maybe one family would be our unitary outlook. Now, there are lots of myths from the past involving polytheism. And as a free thought pagan, freedom of thinking was a big part of my outlook and joining this church also. Freedom of thought, so I can change my mind and follow my logic where it goes. I get to say which versions of myths that I believe in and which versions of myths that I don't believe in. And there are lots of different versions of myths. So I don't believe in the versions of myths that have divinities and gods doing all sorts of evil things. And in fact, I can make up my own myths if I want, or revise them to suit my cut of my cloth. As for gods and goddesses, some say, do you really believe in these spirits, these kind of airy-fairy gods and deities, and where are they, Some might ask, these are imaginary beings? Is that like an imaginary friend you have? Okay, I confess that there is some or a lot of superstitious stuff in what I have told you. Magic and all, magical technology and earth magic. But I feel that the male and female deities of the pagan traditions are actually psychological spiritual archetypes, which you can access, you can believe in, and you can get strength, hope, and reassurance from. They are like a big spiritual family or friends in the sky, and they help me to face death, and they help me to face defeat. And, I'm doing pretty well now after being a pagan for 54 years, so I think that's worked. Even monotheists will tell you that it helps to have a great big friend in the sky who helps you and knows what you're going through when you're out there all by yourself stuck in the wilderness or something. So I found the power to commit and to choose and to make the will to believe. A lot of us neo-pagans believe in reincarnation. And since I happen to remember 3 of my earlier past lives, it was kind of easy for me to sign on to that. Nobody can tell me that I'm going to go to hell after I die, because I already died 3 times and I'm not in hell. I'm here. If I was going to hell, I would have gone several lives ago. Finally, the Unitarian Universalist Association is forging a bold new path to survive and thrive in this challenging century. And pagans, with this UU presidential election coming up this year, with Sophia Bettencourt as the first candidate I've read about, and with the 8th Principal Project on Multicultural Community, that is the goal and the aim of the Unitarian Universalist efforts for the next 2 years here in the mid-2020s. The paganism, neo-pagans, and the CUPS group is a firm partner and a backup for those intentions and those efforts. And with the anti-racist initiatives that the UU Church is embarking on as of 2023, it is strongly committed to dismantling white supremacy, and a campaign we are now engaged in. And Unitarian Universalists, pagans, as I mentioned, we are a committed multiracial group. We are committed to helping that along. We want to help the church help people to find happiness in this 21st century. And pagans are set, we pagans here, are set on solving our problems, and we are dedicated to goal-oriented activity, making the most of our finite mortal lives that we consider a gift from heaven. The gods expect that of us. Now, what happened in church that Wednesday in August, in the middle of August, was a close call, and we lucked out. I think that the holy protected us. That's my opinion. I think there was something holy going on. And there was also the time when we had the big fire in the backfield, and that could have burned up 5 or 6 houses like it did one time over in Grand Prairie summer ago. We were very lucky there too. Something holy protected us there. But this has been a hard summer. We are all having a hard time in this world today. It's a very challenging world. I remember in July having a beer with AJ and Roman Collins, and we were having a good time talking, and he was telling us about what he was going through, trying to find a job as an electrical apprentice. And I remember seeing him in his work truck. I saw Roman Collins, because we were back here. It was during the week one time, and we had a long chat with him. And I had associated with him on a number of different levels. I got to know him pretty well, and I was considering him being on the way to being a friend. But I saw Roman looking for work, trying to pay his bills, struggling to survive. He's struggling to find a way through life. And, I remember thinking, hey, I'd like to help. I'd help more than just buying a beer. I was going to, give him some gas money or help him along. And so I was kind of worried about Roman at that time. And I said, well, I hope he finds a job soon. So we have a lot of people who are suffering in the world today and who are challenged by things and don't know which way to go or which way to turn. And they're suffering loss, such as we've seen just last week. And so I have a lot of sympathy and a lot of empathy for people who are trying not to fall behind, not to go crazy from the heat, and trying to make themselves a happier future. And we hope they do it with our church. So my pagan heart says that we all ought to try to be extra kind and affectionate to each other from this point on here in the fall of 2023. And we need to try to help all of each other get through and see what kind of happy life we can have on the other side. And that's my way to try and clear with you all what Cups is about, and to cheer us up and not to bum us all out. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. It gave me a lot to think about. Now, would you please rise as you are willing and able for our closing hymn, number 91, Mother of All in Every Age. chalice extinguishing words are by Adam Slate. We end our gathering with gratitude for camaraderie, shared wisdom, goodwill, and support that we extend to each other within this community. May we continue to bless each other with these gifts, and may we reflect those blessings back out into the world as we minister to those around us.
We close with the benediction from Pat Uribe Lixty. Go out now with hearts and hands and minds renewed to the world that is waiting for you. Go out to that world to bring your gentle touch to those in pain. Go out to feed and house those in need. Go out to speak truth to those with power. Go out with courage to do the work which calls to you. Go out now with your passion and faith to change the world. The service is ended. All are welcome to stay.